untouched are not a threat.
I take it then that you are yourselves among the afflicted.
We don't consider ourselves afflicted.
So in the episode, you guys are very much sort of like on display, and Primrose, especially Anna, is sort of treated more like a monument or like an animal or something than like a human girl. What emotions do you think she was like feeling there? And it seemed like such a great idea, like this invite, but in execution, it was not what they might have expected.
I think it was a bit of a nightmare for Primrose, really. I mean, as a girl, Primrose, and a 16-year-old girl especially, Primrose definitely is a bit more reserved, and she's still figuring herself out. She's still understanding how she can still be feminine and 10 foot tall, and then to be taken to this party and then kind of carted around and people taking pictures with you, acting like you're some kind of monster, is really horrifying, and I think probably quite depressing for her, because it kind of shows just how far behind society is right now, and that no one in the world around her is going to be able to view her as a proper woman while she's 10 foot tall. And I just really hope that, you know, along the course of the episode, she gets to learn that, you know, you can be feminine and you can be a strong, beautiful woman, no matter what size and shape you are.
Myrtle, Viola, speaks just about every language but English. What was the process there for you, and how are your language skills both before and after the show?
Yeah, so at school I studied Chinese, Latin, ancient Greek, but French, a bit of Italian. So I had like a little bit of grounding in some of those, but the process was really long and arduous, but incredibly interesting and educational. So we got all the scripts in English, and then me and my dialect coach Sally, who was just amazing, we went through it systematically and translated each line. And I got some help from some of my friends at school who sent over recordings, so I could get the correct pronunciation. And yeah, so we just played around with what sounded right rhythmically for me, what I felt was easiest, and what languages I was drawn to most. So I used a lot of Russian because I love the sound of it. So, and I think I did actually learn like quite a bit. I know some cool words, some random words in some random languages. I mean, we really got some really outlandish languages that I'd never heard of before in there. So yeah, it was great, but it was time consuming.
Like, it's one thing to like have to do, you know, a paragraph or whatever in French, but like flipping back and forth between the languages has to be challenging.
Yeah, and it's a lot in the mouth shape and the way each vowel is pronounced in different languages, going from, you know, very round vowels in Italian to a very forward, right at the front of your mouth in Russian, and like gosh, and then in your throat. It's a lot. So I hope I did it justice. I really do.
Harriet's skill is that she can turn items into glass, which feels like it could come in handy as sort of like a trade, but I'm not sure how super practical it is in real life. I guess it could be like in a superhero action-y kind of way. How do you think her skills, like usefulness, will come into play? And then also, like, how do you think that she sort of found her place in the orphanage?
I think she found her place within the orphanage because she felt other and she was abandoned, like a lot of the girls you'll meet by their parents and whoever they were. They're not orphans in the true sense of the word of what we think orphans are. They're orphans because in the way that orphan would make you think of abandonment and a lack of love from those who might have birthed you. And her powers, I mean, it's difficult to like explain them without sounding like super cheesy. So if you're willing to put up with that, then I'm happy to like let you in. But she makes things clear. Like she takes something that has color and makes it clear. And I think that is an incredible way to view the world, with, you know, when it comes to you know, identity and religion and touched versus untouched and political stances and sexuality. All of these things become redundant because she's so transparent in how she views everything. And I think that is more part of her superpower rather than just the ability to turn the inanimate into glass. And I think, you know, she just really envelops that spirit to see beyond what we see day to day, and she refuses the idea that the world is just black and white, and she wants to look at the nuances between those gray areas that other people don't really want to see. And I think that for me is what her strength.
I do love her character. Like, there's a part sort of later on in the season, I'm not giving too much away, but where she's like, she wants to be a lawyer, she wants to be a barrister, and like she is like, I can't be one for so many reasons. Like, I'm touched, but I'm also this woman, and like just that my place in society is not here. And it is very interesting to sort of look at like, well, it's not just this one thing that's sort of like holding me back in this world, and that's we are multitudes, I guess.
Yeah, that's what's incredible about her. Like, her kind of like trepidations with society are like threefold. They're not just because she's a woman, but they're also because she's touched, and they're also because she's from a South Asian heritage. And all of these, you play into her narrative of what it is to live in Victorian society in the late 1800s in London. Like, it's just like an absolute head mess. But she's obsessed with the law, and she's obsessed with figuring out how to place into practice active change within society that's long-standing, that shatters glass ceilings, that makes people really, I mean, and then I've just said that, and like shatter glass ceilings and her ability is glass, like she just really, 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 really wants to make effective change by staying within the confounds of the law rather than being revolutionary. And I think, as much as, you know, personally, I think, you know, revolutionary is definitely like the cooler way to take. Like, I think I really admire her ability to want to use her brain for a greater strength rather than brute force.
It also kind of plays into one of the things I was talking to, I want to say Pip and Olivia, maybe Ben and Amy yesterday about, was like sort of like the sense, it was Ben and Amy, it was sort of about the sense of like the other and how small a lot of people's worlds were like at that time. Like, you had your work, your family, your neighborhood, and like you maybe went to the other side of London like on holiday, you know what I mean? Like, you weren't going. So like, it's sort of something you see with Myrtle's parents, where it's like, she's just speaking other languages, but then when they're like, she's speaking Chinese, like, well, Chinese people, like, it's such a foreign concept. Like, they've never met Chinese people. Like, they have no concept of what China is like. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, so like the otherness of it is just like very fearful, I guess, to a lot of people. And like, that's something that I thought was really interesting about the show. I don't know if you guys have thoughts about that, or.
I think with Myrtle, like, you physically see it because, you know, we start with her literally in the confines of one room, chained to one bed, and then immediately she is thrown out of a window and into the arms of these like half robot, half people. So it's this sort of dramatic shift within like a few seconds of her being thrown out of this small house, small world of her parents have sort of constructed for her, into this completely different world that has some endless possibility for her. And I think for her, the otherness is the thing she finds more comfortable. I don't think she ever found that world with her parents comfortable at all. I think she always thought of herself as different, even before she got her power. So I think for her, she embraces the other, and she is more other than she is Haplish or whatever. So yeah, I think it's really interesting.
These girls also, like Harriet, Myrtle, and Primrose, are really good examples of like finding sort of like, the phrase we use now is chosen family. I don't know if they're necessarily choosing their family in the way that they're sort of like, well, this is where you have to go basically, or go somewhere else. But It's interesting how they've, they can find such a stronger bond with these people they don't necessarily know than their own family.
Obviously, like, as you say, they don't get to pick who's in the orphanage. But I think it's definitely a special moment for Primrose when Myrtle comes in the first episode, because even though that everybody in the orphanage is different in their own separate ways, for Primrose, she's 16. And so as cool as it is for us watching everyone in the orphanage and being like, whoa, there's so many cool women. If you're a 16-year-old girl, you want to hang out with some other 16-year-old girls. And so when Myrtle arrives, it's just pure joy for her, because even though she can't speak to her in a conventional way, they can still share a bond and share a closeness that you can only really get with friends.
The future of the world depends on what I'm doing.
The future of the world depends on the present.
Attached. A part of something much bigger.